March 24th, 2022 work session of the Penfield Planning Board. We'll begin the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Yep. Hetzke.
Hetzke here.
Aken.
Aken here.
Burton.
Burton here.
Kanauer.
Kanauer here.
Tydings.
Tydings here.
Sangster.
Sangster here.
Weissar.
Weissar here.
O'Connor.
O'Connor here.
Dubrek.
Dubrek here.
Gray here.
Okay, we have minutes from the February 24th meeting. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to take a look and review them. And would somebody care to move to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
I'll second that, Tydings.
motion by Aken, second by Tydings.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay. Let's start going through our tabled items.
All right, tabled application number 1 is the PathStone mixed-use development. At this time, we still have no new updates, so no actions required by the board at this time.
Okay.
Application number 2, the Arbors at Penfield. I'll start off with the sidewalks. Last night, Ralph appeared along with Mark Valentine at the town board work session to discuss sidewalk waiver along for the development Arbors at Penfield. Ultimately, the town board approved the sidewalk waiver for the development. So they will be providing easements along all frontages, but based on the conversation that we had with the town board, letting them know that the neighbors on Penfield Center Road weren't interested in having sidewalks or sidewalk connections out to that road. There will be a waiver fee, which is part of any of our sidewalk waivers, paying into the sidewalk fund. The only real modifications to the multi-use trail that will be coming out of the discussions with the town board is, can you bring up the section just north of that portion of phase 1? So if you can do the overall.
Yep. 1 sec.
No worries. Yep. So if you zoom in on the north side, there's lower right corner. There's a sidewalk connection that was proposed as part of that roadway connection in discussion with the applicant, looking at widening from the multi-use trail out to 250, that to 10 feet. So it's part of the multi-use trail, and that would be the connection back. It pulls it off a little bit from the residential single-family parcel at the northeast corner, but provides a sufficient access point for the public to be able to access the multi-use trail.
So that was part of what was agreed to last night by the town board?
Correct.
And that light blue portion?
No, the light blue portion, sorry, that will be going away. There's that roadway that goes out to 250. There is a sidewalk on the west side that extends down to 250, widening that out to 10 feet.
Okay.
So
that's where the stub will be. Now, what about a sidewalk along the road? Who ultimately then will be responsible for the sidewalk going from there north to the next parcel? Is that's then going to be part of the town sidewalk plan?
Either be part of the town sidewalk plan. We will be taking easements along the frontage. Ultimately, if that parcel at the corner develops, connecting into the sidewalk network or the multi-use trail will be part of that parcel's development. Same with the parcel at the southeast corner. the former gas station property.
Can you go scroll over to there too? So in this case, does the blue exist or
No. No. There was some discussion, some potential at coming in at the corner. It's really hard to judge where that development will ultimately go and what will ultimately take place there. So
I
having
notice a for
it,
sale sign up there right now.
okay. So without knowing what's going there, it's hard to anticipate a connection point by connecting in at just at the would be the northwest corner. With the trail pulling it around, bringing it up at that corner, which I believe a newer revision shows. It gives them the most flexibility, or that parcel the most flexibility in how they want to connect. They can bring it down on either side of their property, connect it in where they feel comfortable, where that development feels comfortable. Providing a connection now elsewhere on the property may not hinder, but it would make it difficult for future development of that parcel, either having to meet that or having to make substantial changes to either a neighboring property, in this case, the Arbors property, to try to accommodate that connection.
Okay.
So there ultimately will be a continuation, but what the continuation looks like will largely hinge on how that parcel develops. Which is how we do it with most of the other properties we've looked at, is they build upon
Yeah,
what was
but I
previously.
mean, most of the other properties, we might end with the sidewalk in the right of way. And then when that next property develops, that's just continued on in that. This is a change in that, where instead of the sidewalk being north-south right along 250 on the right-of-way, we're saying, hey, how does that make sense when there's a nice wider walking path further in, probably safer, many positive arguable points, but somehow down the road, we got to figure out how somebody walking north from let's say, whatever mixed-use development goes in on the south, or if somebody's walking along 250, how do they end up on that trail, and who's responsible to do that? And maybe I'm off the reservation with this because the town board granted a waiver, so it's I guess a done deal, but it's still something that I think we're going to have to figure out in the future.
So
At some point, I would think.
Or
by making that connection at the northwest corner, it does open up it allows whatever future development goes there to build upon it, going in either direction, either along their property lines and bringing it back out.
you're talking about the little green stub,
Yes,
the northwest corner of that corner parcel. That's what you're talking about?
Applicant correspondence, there's a JPEG image in there.
I would think at one point, you'd want to get the sidewalk to that intersection, because that's
So
where people are going to cross.
250 Atlantic Avenue intersection.
Right.
Right. So then is the corner parcel have sidewalks wrap all the way around it, at least 3 sides? So the Atlantic Ave frontage, the 250 frontage, and then the northern border to go up to that stub? That's the plan?
Yes, so, yes, I believe so. So, yeah, so they would be able to either not bypass that corner, but there would be they could do it on any of the three sides. There was, so the reasoning was, there was some concern too of bringing the trail too close to that stormwater management facility to provide, they want to provide a little bit of separation, which was going to be hard to do.
How much, I mean, okay, that's what, 10 feet, or it's pretty close?
Yeah, it's relatively close, and it would be.
And would there be any sense in moving the stormwater management, the southern end of that further north and the northern end further north, like shifting it by 20 feet? Or are there, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, I'm really not. I'm just, maybe there are topographical issues or something with that, that the stormwater has to go right there and it can't be moved north where the stub couldn't come out, or am I the only one who thinks it's a little bit strange? Guess I am.
I guess, well, if that facility, like you say, could be shifted a little bit to the north, but again, I see issues, at some point, you're going to want to get to that intersection to cross either Atlantic or 250.
Right, so there's going to be a crosswalk.
Yeah,
Crosswalk's not going to be 200 feet west.
And a lot of that will hinge on what develops on that corner, and will be behoovant on that corner to provide that access from their neighboring parcel to the corner intersection.
to the corner. Okay.
But now you X'd out 2 of the green paths that would have gone to the sidewalk. Who X'd those out? Why are they X'd out? Is that because they got the waiver last night for the sidewalk, so now we just don't want to do that?
No, this was a back and forth between primarily Mark Valentine and Ralph DiTucci in working on the best layout for the multi-use trail. Ralph had expressed some concern, and the engineering department has it as well, that trail connection is relatively close to that stormwater management facility to discourage.
Okay, so that's the reason why that one's X'd out, because of stormwater.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other one to north of that, I guess, nobody's concerned about that one. That's why that one's still there, the other green.
Is that one still there? I don't know if that is.
Yes, that green one there that goes through the text box is still there. The darker one, multicolored one, that's right on the bend there coming into the northwest corner of the exception parcel is still there. They were sort of showing with the dash and the red,
So where
some
it could
potential
potentially go.
connection points. The red dash along the frontage would be where there is sidewalk easement both on Arbors property, and the exception parcel will be tied to the same sidewalk policy that every other development is, so they'll be required to do at minimum a sidewalk easement along their frontage. If they seek a waiver, they would have to figure that out as part of whatever develops at that parcel.
So the theory is, if and let's call it 10 years down the road, the corner parcel's developed, there's sidewalk all up the west side of 250, you're walking north on 250, you want to cross Atlantic Avenue, you cross at the intersection on a crosswalk, that puts you in that sort of no man's land white corner there, that then would take you potentially north. Let's say you want to continue north. So there'd be a sidewalk where that red dashed line is. So the crosswalk would attach to that. And then that would make a 90-degree turn to the west along that. So that property essentially has sidewalks all the way around it.
Potentially.
All the way around the perimeter of that property.
Potentially. It will really be up to what that future parcel looks to do. What they're trying to show is that there will be some flexible connection points, multiple flexible connection points, where they can connect and provide access into that multi-use
They
trail.
can't force them to put the sidewalk on that third side, though. I mean, the waiver is only for the Atlantic side or the 250 side, so that third side that you're referring to, there's nothing there anyways. I don't know why they put a, down that side of the property.
You're talking about the corner property?
Yeah, the
You're talking
corner
about
property. No, the corner property. You keep
Well,
seeing
there's no
three
waiver
sides.
for them at
Huh?
all.
Well, not right now. I mean, they could come and ask for a waiver if they wanted to, but I mean, everybody keeps talking about three sides to that vacant parcel right now, right? But why would they put a sidewalk down that side, though, on their property, I mean, on Atlantic, yes, 250, yes, but not on the back side of there, because there's nothing there now, because the trail's going to be gone.
Well, the idea would then, I mean, that, ultimately, that development for that would come before this board for site plan approval.
Right?
And then it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they put sidewalks in there to make that connection,
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
right?
Right?
I mean, I guess that's the expectation. So whoever ends up with that parcel
Okay.
is looking at
Then where's this road going out to
sidewalk
then?
all the way around.
That Mark and Ralph wanted to keep that one. Where's that going to? The green line that's going out to
green stub.
250?
It just stubs out to 250 and provides an additional access point, across from, I believe ultimately that may be at the edge of, the property.
The southern
owned-
border on
southern
the
border,
eastern
but is also close to, right now, what is currently the only sort of developed or occupied part of 250 right now.
Is that the?
So,
that
yep,
place or
that's
something?
Clark Animal Hospital. I believe it's Clark Animal Hospital, a vacant lot, and a dentist office, and then the former Don Scott's, I think it's Penfield Service Center, Quickly's now. So it would provide access, currently it would provide access to the only developed part of 250 on the south, or east side, sorry.
But you would get people parking in places that they wouldn't necessarily be supposed to park in? I mean, it just, it's
I
kind
don't
of a
foresee
very
that
bizarre-
issue. It would be more, the folks at Clark want to go on a walk on their lunch break. They would be able to cross over 250 there and
Get on
walk
the
along
side,
the
yeah.
trail.
So would there be like the pedestrian crossing? there
That is
also?
something that we can look at as part of
Probably
250
not.
corridor, but probably not.
Probably not to begin with.
State highway.
It's a state highway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd need a DOT permit to do that, and they'd have to approve it, and that's not likely to happen in that speed zone.
Unless it's done at like between 2 and 4 in the morning, under cover of darkness, with people wearing, camouflaged clothes.
Or
It just- it
in the next
provide-
millennium, when we get a light there,
Yeah.
then that's a possibility, but for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future, no.
I see the thought process with that green stub there. And I don't know if I'm belaboring something that's a completely done deal. What was is there a final layout that was agreed to last night by the town board that is, okay, this is where it's going to go and where the stubs are going to go?
So they
Or
were,
was it just, hey, we'll waive you putting in the sidewalks in the right-of-way, and then whatever else, is the planning board's job to figure out? What's been agreed to in, by law, and what are we still responsible for?
I think the ultimate details will be worked out between the engineering department and the applicant. I know the town board was comfortable with the layout as proposed or as shown. That was, changes to it was one of their concerns, but ultimately they moved forward with it. So they really looked at it with this current layout and whether the multi-use trail adequately replaced what was the intention of the sidewalk policy. And they did feel comfortable that the multi-use trail as shown, on the aforementioned map up here, that they were comfortable with the layout. And they were comfortable that the planning board would be able to work on, any final site changes that were necessary for it. So ultimately, the waiver was sort of an in-kind for the multi-use trail.
So is the
With
applicant
the full
totally
waiver.
clear on where stubs are expected and so on? So that to me, that's like a, back of a napkin kind of, marked up drawing with, oh,
Yes,
it could
and
go
this
here, it
was-
could go there. And we're going to have to vote on, okay, this is the site plan. And
Yes.
are we
They-
clear on where that's supposed to be? And is the applicant clear on where that's got to be?
I believe so. And so the color differentiation was largely to make it more approachable for the town board to be able to explain
Sure.
different. So the yellow was to show the traditional sidewalks being
Yep.
installed along the
Yeah, and the
portions of the
green's a
road that were going
multi-use
to
trail
be
wider.
dedicated, and
Yeah.
the green was the
Got it.
multi-use trail. It was to provide a visual aid
Sure.
to the town board.
We want to make sure we get clarification from them that that's the case before, that they don't want us to approve, make those decisions on the stubs, as you call
Well,
them.
I guess what I'm
Yes.
wondering is, if there were specific things that they approved
Right.
with a layout and, okay, we will grant you the waiver based on this, that, and the other thing, and that this will be the layout.
Right.
I want to make sure that we have that plan. Or if they didn't specifically say, this is the layout, and it's up to us to finalize the layout, we have to finalize
That's why we need the
layout.
clarification
And that's
from
where
them.
I guess I'm unclear on that. And, to keep things moving and forward progress,
Ralph is in the audience if you'd like to discuss it with him. He was there discussing it with the town board last night. He may be able to shed a little bit more light on his full conversation with the town
yeah,
board.
okay. Ralph?
To the
Maybe
yeah,
go.
this table at the microphone.
He's got to be at a
This is
microphone.
all now formal stuff, so.
Yes.
Hey, Brian, is this good where Ralph is?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, that's good.
I'll try to answer your question as succinctly as I can. The town board basically looked at the variability of locations for the multi-trail connection to Route 250 and/or Atlantic, and felt confident from Mark Valentine's and my conversations that we were in agreement with the northern entrance sidewalk being enlarged, and at the south end, at the northwest.
So that's the north entrance sidewalk on the south side of the north entrance to the.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
And
to be clear.
yes, thank you. And at the south end of Route 250, where the stormwater management facility is located, because of the normal New York State DOT approach to curb cuts at that type of intersection, it's likely that they want to be as distant from the intersection as possible with respective curb cuts on both Atlantic and 250.
Sure.
So what we recommended, you may recall that the PRC and the board was looking, the planning board, were looking at stubs to Route 250 in the vicinity of the stormwater management facility. We previously showed a stub from our property that the board requested also into that exception parcel. It was about midway in the north property line of that exception parcel. What we were recommending and what Mark and I discussed was shifting that connection to the exception parcel to their northwest corner, so that when the when the planning board reviewed that exception parcel, they would want to see the multi-use trail connection through that parcel.
in addition to the public sidewalk that's required anyway. So by shifting that location to the northwest corner of the exception parcel, that owner can have the option of continuing the trail to Route 50 along their north property line or to Atlantic Avenue along their west property line, which we felt was giving them and the planning board some latitude in interior design of that exception parcel. So looking at, I think your earlier question, though, with regard to the sidewalk itself,
Yeah.
because of that no man's land that you pointed out, AJ, that's DOT's territory. They're going to extend the sidewalk, I would imagine,
Through that. Right.
within their right-of-way, both along Atlantic and 250.
Right.
We were just trying to accommodate the extension of the multi-use trail through the exception parcel at the most logical point, keeping it away from the pond, both for safety and topographic reasons, because obviously when we adjoin that existing exception parcel, we have to marry into their grades. So our grades on our property have to blend to their existing grades as we know them to be today.
Right.
I don't know if I've clarified anything for you, but the way Mark and I left it with the town board was they were aware of the flexibility that Mark expressed and where we make the actual physical stub, so long as we make provision for the connection at some point to that exception parcel.
Okay. What about the green stub, say, north side of the stormwater retention facility and south, the one that's over to 250 that we were talking about that goes over to the...
Mark and I are in agreement on that.
That should go in?
That will go in.
Okay. What about, I mean, we haven't talked about the southwest corner on Atlantic. How would is that a clear? Oh, that's pretty clear. Okay.
Yeah, Mark and I both agreed on that.
Before you left your spot.
Yeah, no, Mark and I were in agreement on that as well.
That. Okay. Okay, so you have clear direction on what the town board's expectations were.
Yes, sir.
Mark has a clear idea.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's really what I wanted to make sure.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. Okay. Everybody on the board clear now? Or
We still need clarification,
As clear as mud.
right? I mean, we still need clarification because they still took care of the waiver. They talked about, the stubs and things of that, but it's still going to be up to us if, before he goes and changes everything, if that's what we agree on. I don't think they're agreeing or disagreeing. That's what Mark and him presented to the town board. But it's still up to the planning board, unless I'm missing something, that we're going to have to decide whether or not, okay, is that where we want it? We think that's the best spot, and we want to eliminate those other ones, and we can't do that until we get the clarification from the town board what they actually.
So you sounds like you just want to have it reflected in the plan, and maybe you want Mark to confirm the understanding of what the town board is agreeing to on the waiver.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Are we done talking about that? Anybody have any other comments or questions on the multi-use trail, this portion of it?
I just have one thing. So the multi-use trail, so it's open to the public, right? Where are people actually going to park? And they have to park all the way inside of the area to be able to actually walk out on the trail?
Potentially. It is there for the use both of residents and the public. So residents, I believe the hope would be that they're not driving to another part of their own development to get out and walk on it, is that they would walk on it and, whether it's for recreation or exercise, to walk their dog, that they would walk out to it and utilize it. For the public, if they are there visiting, if they're in the area, if they're coming from neighboring communities. There is a connection out to Penfield Center Road. There's not a full sidewalk out there based on the request of the residents on Penfield Center Road, but there is a stub that comes out by Runwick Run. There was a resident who had expressed that his hope was his grandmother would move into this development and they would be able to walk back and forth between their neighborhood and this development. So the idea wouldn't be, somebody's not necessarily going to come drive here just to walk on the trail, but they'll either be from a neighboring development or neighborhood, a resident, they're here visiting one of the commercial uses within the vertical mixed use. They grabbed ice cream, want to go on a walk, it's a nice summer day. So I don't believe the intention really is that somebody's going to drive here to walk on it. It's going to be users and visitors of the development and the neighboring areas primarily. And then ultimately, if there's a future connection up towards Town Hall, it would be just interconnected with this area.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And just to finalize, the waiver was granted again on Penfield Center Road as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on to, so they have responded to previous tabling resolutions, running through, some of their responses, looking to the architectural icon or building that was a recommendation of Plan Architecture, the board's architectural consultant. The applicant has let us know that they are looking to do 2 pavilion-style buildings, 1 at each entrance. They'll be open on 3 sides. The 4th side will have a map of the development and will provide some street furniture, benches, bike racks, things like that. So they'll act both as a rest stop on the multi-use trail as well as, and Catherine has brought up the drawing done by Chris Lopez.
Right.
So they'll do small buildings at each of those that'll be open on 3 sides to act as a rest stop, sort of a welcome center into the development. It'll have a map of the development, benches, they can sit in the shade, see a map of the development, figure out where they are and where they're going.
Is that been reflected on a plan anywhere?
No, they're currently working on
And-
revised plans and architectural details.
And would that include a parking spot or 2? If it's going to have if you're driving in and this is let's say a map of the internal development, if you're driving in, why would how would you stop there to look at the map?
That is a question we can certainly ask the applicant. I believe they'll also have other interior signage more oriented to automobile traffic.
So,
This is more of
okay.
a pedestrian scale. If you were walking to or entering the development by walking, you would have the ability to stop, see a map. Automobile traffic there'll be other signage within the development to direct automobile traffic to a location. But this is something we can ask for clarification. I do know they are intending to have concrete details and examples as well as the architecture for the board's next meeting.
Okay, hey Ralph, can you explain that again a little more?
Yes, sir. The intent and the design that we have in preliminary schematic form right now is to have an iconic architectural element, a building, small scale, at both the easterly Atlantic Avenue primary entrance and the southerly Route 250 primary entrance. The map that Doug's referring to would not be a map designed to be visible from the roadway. It's for bicyclists and pedestrians who stop at that particular building
Okay,
to give them their bearings where they are as they're entering the facility or as they're circulating through it. It won't be visible or legible from the roadway for motorists to stop intentionally, because by providing a large map that a motorist would want to look at as he's pulling in would be a safety factor, which we want to avoid. It's meant to be a rest stop for bicyclists and pedestrians who are using the multi-use trail, whether they're entering it or exiting from it, with signage for those who are coming in to be able to know where they are and where they're headed and what the elements of the overall development are.
okay. Is that also designed to be essentially your
Monument?
sign
Yes.
to say, hey, this is the Arbors?
Correct. We've reviewed the signage ordinance, and we believe that the design we've come up with now will permit building-mounted signage on the structure at an elevation where people driving in can see, or bypassing the development, can see and identify that this is the Arbors.
Okay,
And that would be true on both roadways, 250 and Atlantic.
in both directions.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Anything else?
I'm not sure. Getting exercise tonight. Up, down, up, down. Okay. Next on this.
So Ralph, like Ralph said, he reviewed the signage code. He did provide us a signage code summary, so he's gone through. We don't have a full signage package yet. I know he's working on providing one that'll be coming at a future meeting. But going through the code to provide justification for the signage that will be proposed. So look forward to that. They responded to refuse, how refuse will be handled within the development. It'll be a mix of toters and dumpster enclosures. So the townhomes will have refuse and recycle toters, that'll be kept in the garage, sort of like most residential style homes do. The vertical mixed use and larger buildings will have dumpster enclosures. There'll be a combination of hardy shake siding, cultured stone, and stained cedar gates. So those are very traditionally materials that we've looked for in the past for dumpster enclosures that are both architecturally appealing and resilient to our upstate New York, Western New York winters.
Okay. Everybody good with that solution?
Except we've had discussions about the fact that
We don't want to see 50 toters?
the
Or-
refuse is fine because they're all on the service roads behind the buildings. That's fine. No, I'm talking about the signage, and we've had discussions about the fact that the MUD manual places the obligation for review on the board, and that this board doesn't have the resources to really do that. So I think that perhaps we should ask Chris to do that for us.
Or certainly could,
This is a robust sign package. There's wayfaring and there's, numbering and coloring, and there's a lot going on here. And now we've got these large kind of, legacy Arbor branding structures out front with signage, and I think it would be helpful to us to have, and that's a big lift for staff, everything they have to do, so it makes sense to me to maybe
To
ask
get
Chris to
somebody-
do that.
okay. I could see that. Any other comments on that? Suggestion?
When we do
No?
get a full sign package, that is something we can, if you'd like, we'll send it off to Chris Lopez for his review and comments.
Okay. Good.
All right. So there was, previously the board's had some discussion on lighting around the multi-use trail. The applicant's responses were that there is a distinction between sort of the multi-use trail and sidewalks or interior walkways, pedestrian walkways, and the fact that, town parks aren't lit at night, county parks aren't lit at night, providing, is there the necessity to provide lighting then for the multi-use trail or portions of the multi-use trail? And if so, what does that look like? In staff's discussions, we've looked or discussed the idea of potentially bollard lights being along portions of the trail, specifically targeting the areas that are around the residential townhouses to provide some minimum base security lighting or aesthetic lighting, especially during the evening hours of our long winters here in New York. Another way would potentially be as these are all rental units, for the homes that directly face the multi-use trail, do we require that the exterior lighting, porch lighting, basically be a on at dusk, off at dawn lighting, so that it'll provide a little bit of overglow to the multi-use trail in between the areas that are going to be lit by the street lighting on the dedicated roads coming in, just to provide a little bit of comfortable.
Well, there's, I guess I want to hear from everybody else on this also. With nighttime lighting, there's generally 3 considerations to do it: safety, security, and aesthetic quality. The argument that, okay, parks aren't lit at night, the other trails aren't lit at night, is a valid argument to the extent that if the park is closed after dusk, the park is closed after dusk. This, this is a active development, and to me, one of the features of living there and attractions of living there would be the ability to go for a walk. And, we all may think that there's snow from October until April. There's not actual snow covering everything from October till April. There's at least 4 or 5 days in that period of time that it's not covered with snow. And I know I'm being facetious with that, but it seemed to me that it would be nice to be able to go for a walk in November, December, January, February, when you get home from work, around that trail. At least, again, on the southeastern, northern portion, the western perimeter, I guess that's, to me, more arguable that it's like a park. The other areas are more like a village. It's and then there's the aesthetic part of it, that nighttime lighting done well is beautiful at night, and you want to go there, and you want to walk, and having, whether it's bollards or uplights on trees, architectural lighting, highlighting some of the architecture. Now, that's not going to be on the multi-use trail, but some of the other areas to really make it look attractive, I think would be a selling point. And I would like to see something there, or seriously considered anyway, and I'll open it up to everybody else on the board.
I agree. 2 meetings ago, we discussed this.
Yeah.
You had these same questions to me, and I agree with everything. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree, and you talk about like a park area, certainly the residents are going to want to walk, circulate in the development. And I guess the only question that I would have is would there be any posting that for just non-residents, non-guests, that the multi-use trail is closed, you know, after sundown?
Well, I don't think that, at this point, that's off the table, especially since there's a sidewalk waiver. So that's essentially the public sidewalk
Right.
on the south and the east, and on the north, really. So that part of it,
So the
you know,
south, south
can't
and
put up, hey, we got the sidewalk waiver, and,
right.
you know,
But-
we ostensibly said that this is taking the place of the sidewalk, but, you know,
How about
Penfield,
to,
you
how
know,
about
the
to the
public
west?
can't walk on it after
Well,
a
yeah,
certain
they
period of
could,
time.
but within, like, to the west on that development, I don't know, I'm just thinking if people would just, if they can go there 24/7, you know, certainly on the roadways for where you would normally have sidewalks, but if it's within the parcel, I don't know.
I'm not 100%.
You know, we talk about it like being like a park,
Yeah.
the trail system. The parks in Penfield are generally, you know, they're closed from sunset to sunrise. Okay. So
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. So what, and maybe you're talking about just that western portion?
yeah, certainly the western, I can see where, you know, you couldn't restrict in the areas where those trails end up being the sidewalk, but ones that are within the parcel itself.
Right.
Well, most of the sidewalks within the development will be lit because they are proposing street lights along
Okay.
the roadways. So there will be interior lighting and even some of the trails in, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to see
But-
lighting, but I think we talked about, you know, the people that are living there in the evening, you know, after dark, midnight, you know, they're going to circulate in there, and I don't know. I would think personally, if I was in a unit maybe to the west there, I wouldn't want that to be necessarily a 24/7 walkway.
The multi-use trail you're talking about.
Correct.
Well, okay, so if we look at the possibility of the southern, eastern, northern portion having some type of lighting, and then a little sign that says, you know, like a park or something, this is closed from
Right.
dusk to dawn, and it's not enforced. So if anybody, if, you live there, I live there, whatever, we feel like going for a walk after, nobody, the cops, Terry's not going to come out and arrest us.
Maybe.
Maybe.
So, but it's definitely not, it's discouraged,
Right.
tacitly discouraged, if that's the right word you were going to say.
Yeah, I don't see that actually being, I don't think people are going to be, living it up on the trails after dark, but to your point, I do feel that, I envision this development maybe full of families, full of young children, and, they're toddlers learning how to ride a bike, and they want to be on the trail, and, you'd hate to cut that off just because we lose daylight at 4 o'clock in the winter, So I see your point, and that's what I would envision for this development.
Okay. Jim?
Well, I think the mixed-use trail is really a community benefit that the developer is offering. Portions of that are replacing the town sidewalk policy, and portions of that provide connectivity to the normal sidewalks for pedestrian access throughout the different types of housing and commercial uses. I wouldn't burden the developer with taking, every lineal foot of the mixed-use trail and providing light bollards there. I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't think it's going to be used. I mean, occasionally in the summertime, you might have a few people, but I don't see this as something that's going to get this, significant amount of use in the dark. So I think there's a way to maybe identify those portions of the mixed-use trail that do provide connectivity, that are consistent with what's written in the manual for, those walkways, that they should be well lit, and ask them to provide a lighting plan consistent with just that.
So is what you're saying, you would advocate for illuminating portions of what we've been discussing? Or
Those portions that serve to provide connectivity to the traditional sidewalks throughout the development, yes.
So so you're essentially looking at the safety security side of it, not the quality of life aesthetic or any of that side of it.
Do I have to choose?
Well, I'm
Absolutely, I think
kind
safety
of going
and-
after the
safety and
quality of
security.
life.
Yeah, but that's
You know,
that's
you-
an
you-
awful lot of illumination for something that's probably not good. There's a good deal of this mixed-use trail that's remote from, the normal activity for the people that are going to be living and working.
Right, and I think we've been talking about that as the western portion would be not part of the,
So,
at least,
if there's a
I
way
think-
to define that or ask them
I'm
to
not sure how
graphically
Kelly
show
feels about that, but I know that was my, and I think that's your view, that western portion is kind of a remote thing, and it's, a big ask.
Yeah.
That's not really
Well, and you got to weigh community benefit.
correct. I agree with that. That said, the southern, eastern, definitely the southern and eastern, the northern portion, arguable. It's a little bit more, let's call it the suburbs of the development.
So let's ask them to come back with a graphic plan and show us how they think that they can meet
Yeah, I like
what we're
that.
discussing here, and then we have something we can review.
Okay, yeah.
So you're saying, my question, you mentioned this is all public, multi-use trail is all public trail now because we gave them the waiver? That's what you're saying?
The
That's what you're saying?
portions that run along Atlantic Avenue and Route 250, and I believe Penfield Center Road,
Yeah, going up to the
Yes.
Penfield Center.
they
They-
essentially
they
are taking the
become the-
place of of sidewalks that would go there.
But he maintains it.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. So, jogger, somebody walking from Webster to Victor for their weekend Sunday morning stroll, heading south on 250, would be on the right-of-way sidewalk up until they get to this development, and then that would take them into that multi-use trail where it would walk them south, and then they end up in no man's land until that southeast corner is developed, and then there's a sidewalk that brings them over to the corner of Atlantic and 250 to cross the street and continue on. Does that make sense? Or, okay. All right, we good with that? Okay. What other things we waiting on? We
Those are
still
the big points where we're working through. We still have some discussion on sanitary and storm. They're working with the engineering department. We're hoping to have PRC memo out here shortly on their most recent plan submission from March 10th. Ultimately, staff will be working through some of the technical aspects with them, ultimately bringing them back to do it as sewer district, to do the off-site sewer improvements. So realistically, right now, we're looking at, there'll be some revision new submission for April, specifically around the entry buildings on 250 and Atlantic. You've now asked them for revised, so we'll look through like a revised photometric plan. Likely will be the best way to graphically visualize areas that along the multi-use trail for additional lighting. The submission, waiting on a submission of a future sign package to work through some of the signage and wayfinding within the development. So those are a few items, and I think it gives them a good idea of things to work forward on. Staff will continue to work with them on the public space, looking to start the process with easements and or deed restrictions for portions of the public space. That could be a discussion item is 5.1.8B1 requires that all public open spaces are permanently deed restricted from future subdivision and development. If there are areas that the board is interested in focusing in terms of what that looks like, we'll be working, that'll largely be working through our attorney and their attorney on whatever.
deed restricted areas?
And yeah, that in easement language, what that looks like. So I think we have some step forward.
Traffic, we're good with the,
Traffic, we're good. So in reviewing the TIS, really the DOT's, right now it's mostly just a monitoring threshold for phase 1. When we get into phase 2 and beyond is when they really start talking about mitigation, traffic mitigation. along that vein, the town has started taking a look and we're looking at scoping out a traffic study for the 250 corridor for the mixed-use district, looking at, more than just one development-wise, looking at the entire district on what mitigation and other traffic improvements may be necessary as this district continues to develop out. So we're currently in the early phases of that. But traffic-wise, for this development specifically, the recommendations for phase one were to basically monitor until phase two.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? All righty. Anything else that we can cover tonight?
I think the board has hit a lot of the big points. So I think there'll be more discussion. I think we'll be able to have more discussion at the next meeting when we see a few of those new items.
I had a question, Doug. Did we get a response from the applicant on charging stations in parking lots and how they might address future in resident garages? Or is that?
I believe in a previous meeting, the applicant had stated, and Ralph can correct me if I'm wrong, that they would look at, there'd be a potential for
infrastructure in there, like
Okay.
conduit or stubbed out probably for that. That's something we should probably make sure that is in there. Okay. I guess we can, anything else we need to cover tonight on this that anybody knows of? Okay, want to continue table?
We continue to table this application.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
All right.
All right, moving on to application 3, the Penfield Heights MUD. To start off, since the last meeting, we had previously sent off the plans for the architectural review to the architectural consultant for their review. We did just get back his review comments. They just came in this morning. Just to give you a brief rundown, overall his recommendation was that.
So, excuse me.
Yes.
We had, I thought we had settled 3 weeks ago on not really going through those things that the board hasn't yet had an opportunity to review. So it's inappropriate for us to be commenting on things that we just saw this afternoon. So we got a PRC memo, we got comments back from our architectural consultant, and after changing the policy to make sure that those things come in at a certain time, I'm really not prepared to go through those.
I think the intent was just to not really discuss them, but to get a brief rundown.
That's fine.
I agree with you that we're not prepared to seriously discuss them, but a quick summary
Okay.
could be helpful.
Okay.
Okay. So overall, our architectural consultant was supportive. His recommendation is that it appears that this newest revision of architectural details ultimately brings this in and makes the development more compliant. Specifically called out and appreciated the massing, scaling, and materials of buildings A and F. So building A being the commercial building on the north side of the entry drive, building F being the commercial building on the south side of the entry drive, as well as the materials proposed to be used on those is more in keeping with the agrarian feel of East Penfield, as well as the arrival court he believes the arrival court enhances the sense of place and makes it feel a little bit more like a Four Corners with the mix of materials, the trestle bridge. Overall, feeling like this revision has made it more compliant. One or two areas of criticism was that there's still some vinyl siding within, specifically looking buildings, backside of Building D, Building E, and that's, fiber cement board might be a better material wise. But other than that, his review was overall very positive.
Okay, so we can all take a closer look at that over the next, between now and the next meeting. Okay. There are a couple other points that we need to discuss on this tonight. One is I guess the applicant's attempt at getting close to the 20% threshold and possible ways to do that. Anybody have any, none of them get to the 20%.
Yeah, they do.
They do?
They do.
What do they do? Oh, the scenario.
We have two options. We have two options to get to the 20%.
So the scenario one brings them up to
my mistake.
20.3%. The scenario two brings them up to 20.2%.
Okay. Bill, do you mind taking 2 minutes to explain that?
More than two to write it, so figure it out.
I'm encouraging,
There's a nice graphic that goes along with this.
Yes, in the last 2 pages.
So I looked at a couple different ways, and you may question, rightly so, why to take a look at the first one. The first one, option or scenario one, takes a look at what if we took the garage spaces out of the calculation. And way back when, we've always had those in. And, I said, what if we take that out? Where does that leave us? So these garages are there as a result of topography, as a result of our ability to get them in and under the building. We're not taking up surface parking. I was looking at the benefits of what those are doing for us in the overall design.
That's under Building D.
And the back part of C. So there's 4 garages on the back side of C, And in all cases here, both C and D, those really aren't visible to the public.
Right.
You're not driving into the community and seeing either an additional surface parking lot that's bigger or even, garages or on-street perpendicular parking because of those spaces. So to take a look at that and say, let's take out the garage spaces because that space it's what's contributing to the 20% that you have to meet for the overall development. So it's really kind of inflating the number that you have to meet.
Right, so
get
you're sort of the double whammy of
Just-
taking
yeah.
out overall square footage that's considered residential and,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I know this could apply differently to different projects, but I think, this is, again, just one way to kind of have the conversation. Because honestly, if we follow the logic that these garage spaces, contribute to the residential square footage, I could argue that putting basements under buildings A and F contribute to the commercial, non-residential square footage and not change anything and meet a 20% number. So there's the spirit of the and the intent of the MUD, and there's really the mathematical side of how do you,
The spirit and the letter of the law.
how do you, so here's where the devil is now. We're there. We're trying to figure that out. So let's say we did do that. Okay, so that we could automatically get ourselves up to 18.6%. That means we have 1.4% left to achieve the 20%. In order to do that, I looked at two ways. One is to take the common house and say that all of the space in that building, not the pool deck, but because things like the business office or the leasing office are going to be for some of our commercial tenants as well, and leasing of commercial spaces, we would say, okay, let's take the difference between 3,100 square feet and 4,800 square feet, add that back into the equation. So then what we've got left is, I guess, somewhere around 1,575. I mean, we're really drilling down. So 1,575 square footage was added, so the balance needed to achieve it is 1,775. And we would add that on as a second floor on the common house. We already realized we need more space in that building, and we would go up to a second floor. We just don't have enough exercise equipment, and we need, some larger changing rooms and locker rooms. So we would add the space into the common house building. That would get you, in the end, to 20%. So we take out some garages, and we increase square footage attributed to the non-residential in the.
What would the garages turn into? Just
No, they would
build-
stay there. I mean, they would stay there. They just come out of the equation.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we wouldn't try to trade that for, like,
You're not
surface
filling it in with dirt
Yeah,
or
no,
something?
They would just,
Then we'd be short.
They're just
some-
not
Some groups,
Just not
we'd be
counted.
short some parking spaces that.
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So the other way to look at it is, let's say we've left those numbers in the calculation to date, right? We've been going along using those numbers. So let me refresh myself as to the genius move I pulled here. Okay. So one of the things in this scenario was we kept that space. But if I'm going to, on one hand, bring the square footage of the common house up to 4,800 square feet, I have to add that into the total square footage.
Right.
So now I've got to do the math on.
All over again on everything.
All over again.
Yeah.
So that actually increases the amount of square footage needed to achieve 20%. So in addition to adding more square footage to the second floor of the common house, we would add a third floor in Building A, which is the right hand on the north side of the, so the way that building's designed, and I don't know how, if there's a, quickly pull up that building architecture, but we can do that. I think I say it in here, I'm not sure. So if you look at the building that's gable roof, it actually, because of the way let's look at the lower left here. Okay, so you can actually see there's a dashed line there where it says third floor. It's about even with the eave lines of the gable. That's the elevation of the third floor. So what we did is to meet code, we would have to have knee walls at 6'8", 6 foot 8 inches high. So where that point is, we would then have it available as a third floor, and that actually calculates out to being 2,500 plus or minus square feet. That we would have to raise the peak just about a foot or so to make that happen. So we can get the third floor in this building and achieve, and along with the second floor of the common house, but the second floor not including over that great room. We would want that still to be a vaulted, higher volume ceiling, and so we would change some things around in the way that that's laid out. So the combination of a bigger second floor in this scenario 2, plus the third floor in Building A would get us to, and that keeps the garages in the equation.
Which one of these options does your client prefer?
Well, I would say we prefer to be done with the calculation of 20%. But again, here, we're all kind of in this together, right? We're trying to figure out the.
Yeah, but I mean,
They would say, I think they would prefer that the second floor of, the common house, even if we added a little bit more than we were planning to add in the first scenario, which was just a little bit more than it was less than what we're proposing in the second one. The thing is that the third floor of anything, Jim, if you remember, our Building F, the first one, was a 3-floor building. We've been talking to realtors, and
hard to rent.
Hard to rent.
So the answer is that the space over in the common house gives you more functional, usable space. And, I don't know what the other board members think. I personally think that it's perfectly logical not to include the garages in the calculation and make this a little easier to work with, because the last thing that the board wants and the community needs is just more non-residential space that's going to be difficult to lease.
It will be a challenge. I think we all know that, just driving around downtown and
Driving
places
around
where
Penfield.
So.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But in the
Thank
event, in the event that the market, whether it's 2 years or 5 years down the road, that third floor would be available even if we.
To fit out in the future.
To fit out in the
Sure.
future.
Yep, okay. Okay, thank you.
So if, Jim, it sounds like you're more inclined for scenario 1 versus scenario 2? Based on what you said?
I think they've done a great job of finding creative ways to meet that 20%. I think they both work. I think the one that makes sense is the one that makes the most sense to the development and their ability to lease the space and, create usable space in the future.
Kelly?
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounded like they were already planning that they needed a bigger space anyways for the common house. So is that going to be built anyways,
Right.
In which case, it doesn't really matter.
Terry?
I'm fine. Yeah, I can live with that. Option 1, is that what you're looking at?
Well, I haven't told my opinion yet. I'm asking yours.
Okay, you get the last call, I guess.
So scenario 1 or 2. Essentially, scenario 1 says we're not considering the garages as, counting them as residential space, and doesn't include a third floor on building A. Right?
Yeah.
Essentially?
Yep.
Scenario
Makes sense,
2,
yep.
garages are counted as residential space, and there is a third floor on building A.
But both of them have an increase in floor area in the common house.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Based on what Bill said and Jim just said, I agree with them, and I think that's practical.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in my opinion, number 1, and going through removing those garages, I mean, that, thinking it through, that really seems really logical to do.
Okay, so I'm more of a fan of scenario 2. I don't necessarily want to I haven't I like the idea of the third floor in building A. I'm thinking about, that would be a great looking brew pub or something with, who knows if it doesn't have a mezzanine where people are eating. If you've ever been to like Trotta or something, there's levels all over the place there.
So you would rent it, Bill? He said he'd rent it. Just said he'd rent it.
No, I'm never getting into that
Get a
business.
tenant
I'm never getting into that business.
Sorry, he tried.
And I don't know if we want to start off by saying we're not including garages as the space. That I haven't. I don't have an opinion one way or another because I want to hear more arguments for and against why we would consider garages part of the residential space and part of the square footage, and why it would benefit us not to. And I'm not sure that we benefit as a town by not considering them. And on balance, I think that scenario 2 is a better overall solution for the applicant and the town combined.
How big is your house?
Nobody's business. Everybody can find that out.
So let's
Couple
just-
thousand square feet.
Okay. The square footage of your house doesn't include the garage. The square footage in the AIA design manual doesn't include.
Does not include the garage.
In residential space. So, and by the way, our mixed-use development manual doesn't have a definition for non-residential use. So
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think we're fixed to anything, tied to anything, and I don't, not every mixed-use project that we're going to look at is going to have, underground parking under some or portions
Right.
of.
I personally think that's
It's kind of
a
unique.
very nice feature of
It is a
this
nice feature.
development.
It is a nice feature, but, makes more sense to me to do something that the developers can sell and lease easily. You couldn't really put a cafe or a brew pub up there without putting an elevator in, and now you're talking about
I'm thinking about the
225,000
entire building would be one
Well, that's it. Yeah.
place,
Of course, we've been talking about
like New York Beer Project or.
cafes and things like that in all the mixed-use developments, but that's not really something that's come to life.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
the math on that? Are they excluding, so if they exclude the garages from the residential,
overall.
and they exclude it from both, so it's
Yeah,
not.
so
it's
you,
not-
so you have to
okay.
take an overall gross square footage,
Okay.
and then 20% of that has to be non-residential use.
Yeah, so they're
if you
not
just-
saying that that's non-residential, they're taking it out of the
Taking it out of the
equation
overall.
entirely?
Taking it out of the
Okay,
equation.
Right.
okay, I got it.
So,
Okay. I'll go along with what the majority goes along with. Not that I'm happy, but.
You don't have to.
I like
It's just-
scenario 2.
It's just 4 against 1.
Guess it is. Okay. Are we all comfortable with either one of those scenarios? I mean, is it a legitimate answer to the requirement?
absolutely.
Yeah.
They, you know,
Okay.
they've been struggling with this and did a nice job of finding creative ways to overcome this. And if we can get over that hurdle and then move on with the PRC memo and Chris's comments, which we'll need a little time to review,
Yep.
then we can ratchet this forward.
Okay. All right. So that's taken care of. Next item on this.
So staff did send a PRC memo on the 21st, which was Monday morning. I think there was, most of it was largely technical comments, and staff is working on setting up a meeting with the applicant to work through some of the engineering-related sort of technical engineering report SWIP comments, and to run through those with the applicant to get those in the right place. The biggest comments, I think, staff had on sort of discussion points is, one relates to the name. While we were doing some additional research, there is a Penfield Heights neighborhood that exists right now. It's off of, I think it's technically Whitney at that point. It's either 5 Mile Line or Whitney. It's right at that awkward point where it changes road names. Technically in the town of Parenton, but close enough. If they've run that through like E911 and they're comfortable that it may not become a concern that there are 2 developments with the same name within the same zip code area. So while this is in Parenton, it is 14526.
Bill might have some information on that one.
We're actually looking to brand it Mill Point.
Mill Point?
We saw
Okay.
that. It's actually on one of the pages in the drawings.
Thank you,
Mill
Bill.
Point.
We were going to use that rock that's out there that's historic, and we're going to move it over.
Okay.
Isn't every rock historic? I mean, if you think about it, right? I mean, maybe in Hawaii, some of the rocks aren't historic, but in other areas like that, but here. Okay, done. Rally along 250, need to be stronger.
Yeah, that was a comment that we had made to the applicant, and we'll be looking for some clarification with the sunken parking lot next to Building A, and the potential for that area to be used either as cafe seating or an open space, or
Yeah, you want to
something
make
along-
sure nobody, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that should be looked at. And then grading beyond the boundaries of the site. Making sure that there are agreements and discussions with neighboring property owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the last things, and I don't believe we've seen it yet, but we have been in discussion with the applicant based on previous discussions of the planning board about potentially providing additional lighting on the west side of the pond trail.
Right, we mentioned that at the last meeting. And that hasn't really been addressed. Now, if there are porch lights or something on the buildings, and we can get a photometric ISO foot candle plot that shows
The building mounted
ample,
lighting.
enough illumination there, then that could be the answer, but
I don't think we
We don't
count
have
those,
that.
AJ, unless they're on a house panel. Because if they're controlled by a switch
right.
inside the unit, then people can turn them off. People go away for the winter time, and so now you don't have the lighting that you relied on in the photometrics, so.
Right, unless it's along the lines of those are not controllable, that they're on a photocell or something,
And
and they can't be turned off
There are 3 man doors that will require, I believe.
24/7.
They do, but they're not 24/7. They require illumination. All the means of egress are required to have illumination, but you can turn those off. They're all switched. So.
We added lights.
Oh.
Just so you know.
Okay.
Okay,
Under Reliant building, we added bollards.
Okay.
okay. Okay, so we got lights there. Cool.
So those were the major points that we had.
Okay,
We also had building height.
Oh, building height, yes. Apologize for not mentioning
let's
that.
talk about
So,
that.
Catherine, can you bring that up on, it's, pull it out, should be in the bottom of that most recent site plan. If not, you can also find it under applicant correspondence and responses to the tabling resolution. So I believe I briefly mentioned it at the last meeting. Based on a previous tabling resolution, the board had asked and requested for them to show
the percentage that's over.
over 55.
Yeah.
So they show it with 2 different colors. The blue is if you're viewing it from the 250 side. That is the only part of the building that will exceed 55 feet as viewed from the 250 side. The pink is if you're viewing it from the back of the development looking towards 250, would be the area that exceeds the 55 feet. So they point out that from the west view looking east, it'll be 0.7% of the total roof area. When looking west from the east, it'll be about 4%.
So we've had this conversation now 2 or 3 times. Still not clear to me whether or not this board has the authority to
Make that-
process a waiver for non-conforming features. I think personally that they've made significant changes in the architecture and in the roof lines. I think that small amount is what I would consider to be a de minimis amount. And to the extent that this board has the authority to grant a waiver, I would be in favor of doing that here.
Okay,
So I don't know how we do that, Peter, if we, if we, make that part of a tabling resolution subject to, your approval or the town board's approval, or I'm not sure where we go with that.
Well, let's,
So we're looking at that as far as the extent of this board's ability to make that kind of a waiver under the MUD.
So something that we might be able to get a resolution on before the next meeting?
Maybe.
Okay.
Bob, what's your thoughts on the height?
Yeah, Catherine, could you go back to that profile? Okay. And I can't read the numbers, so there we go.
So that's looking from
So we're like
250.
3 foot, if I'm reading that right, 3 foot 1 inch.
Yeah, but again, their whole point here is that the grade at the location of that building relative to the crown and the road and Route 250.
Right, that was my point
Perpendicular to this,
earlier.
really kind of minimizes
Right,
this
and because of that datum of the crown of the road, I have no issues with that, personally.
So the height of the structures, the way they are, you're okay with the proposed?
Yes.
Okay. How
I'll
are
wait
you?
till the legal decision before I make my determination.
Okay,
I'm okay with the proposed height.
okay. All right. I would tend to agree. I think that the height in this case, my personal opinion is the height in this case is not put in there arbitrarily. It's part of the overall architectural design, and it would be very challenging to force the issue. I don't see what we're gaining. So to me, it's not a point that it's not the mountain I want to die on. So I do think that we need to figure out is this going to require a variance, or is this something that we can do? And I know that there's a lot of study going on with that. So we are making forward progress, but it's probably not as fast as some, maybe all people want it to be. But it is progressing. Okay, what else on this can we talk about tonight? Are we?
Those are the major points.
Okay.
We had prepared. Before we go into tabling, one other item. Since this is a type 1 action, after the public hearing, letters were sent to interested and involved agencies.
So we could declare lead agency?
Declare lead agency. Everyone who came back concurred with the planning board as acting as lead agency.
Okay. Somebody want to move that we declare lead agency on this project?
So moved.
Second.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
All right. Our lead agency. Sweet. Okay, you want to move to table?
Yeah, I move to table this matter pending resolution of the board's review of the
Continuing.
architectural review comments and the applicant's response to the PRC comments that went out on the 21st. And the other two items which we're waiting for a resolution on.
We have a
I'll second.
Okay.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Have a good night.
All right, application number 4, 1527 Empire Boulevard. So since our last meeting with them, we have gotten correspondence between the applicant and the state DOT. The state DOT is comfortable with the existing curb cut, that it satisfies the current commercial use. So, and they've also responded to our PRC. They have made the requested changes for the front ADA parking stall, as well as any other revisions. At this point, staff is comfortable with their review,
Okay, and we have a draft.
We do not have a draft completed at this point. The board has not directed staff to.
Okay, so if everything else is in order with this, this is Bob's.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with us directing staff to prepare a draft resolution?
One question, if Catherine could bring up the satellite view. Okay. So if you point where the wall ends, there was a section of asphalt that filled in that area that kind of lessened that radius. Exactly, right there. And of course, to, I guess it's the north, they added another spot up in there for parking. So my only issue, and if engineering is fine with it, with that asphalt that was put in there, and if you draw a straight line out to Empire, it actually widens the curb cut. And DOT said that they would not want to widen that curb cut, that for the use, what's there is adequate. So, you know, if staff and engineering is fine with that piece in the right-of-way that's not paved, then I guess I don't have an issue.
Well, so yeah, the state DOT said that they didn't want to see any improvements to their entrance curb cut. Now,
Right.
The planning board could, I guess, request maybe they remove the pavement that they added. The question is, I don't know why they added that pavement. Is it extra pavement that was just when they did the back?
I think, if I remember, during the public hearing, they said that people were driving off of that section, and it was getting rutted in there.
Right.
So they just widened it there.
Well, so that's what's happening right now at the apron, right?
Right.
So it's which way do we want to go as far as it's easier for them to remove the pavement than almost get a DOT permit.
Well, what if we let it as is, and if it
Yeah.
becomes an issue, then
They'll have to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
the
If they have issues where they lose a tire, let's say in the right of way, they're going to want to fix that. If, a client comes in or a patient comes in and they have an issue, it's in their best interest to fix that. So at that point, they'll apply for a DOT permit.
Yeah, my only other thought was
Or in the middle of the night.
striping or hashing that area on their
That's-
side that would show that it's not really, I guess, I
You're
don't
still
know.
going to drive over it.
Still
You're
going to drive over it,
over
and it's only good for when there isn't snow and
True.
ice on the ground, so.
True. Okay.
So
That was my point.
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's a quagmire.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that,
Leave
Yeah.
it there, leave it there.
yeah, that's fine. The applicant will just,
Were they going to do
deal
any
with it.
landscaping or anything like that?
Not out there. Not out
On the
there.
front or
Do
anything?
that it's in the right of way.
Yeah, it's in the right of way.
Okay, so why don't we
Yeah.
direct the preparation of a
Yeah.
approval resolution?
I'll move to prepare the approval resolution.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings,
Tydings, aye.
Okay, next.
All right, 1698 Penfield Road. Since we last met, the applicant has responded both to the tabling resolution and the PRC memo. Their responses, the responses we got back were very satisfactory. We were happy they were making all of the changes that staff had requested, the board had requested. Due to some technical issues on their side, they were not able to get us plans, but staff is comfortable that that the revisions that they'll make based on their responses will be adequate to what we're looking for.
Okay. Kelly, are you satisfied overall with the state of the application and ready to move forward on it?
Yes.
Oh, if you guys do, if you want to talk about
I would.
the architecture, sorry, really quickly.
It's a white building.
Yes, they had provided at the public hearing, they had provided material samples of the building if you guys were comfortable with the architecture. I guess that was really the last.
It's basic. I guess it's essentially a similar replacement to what's there in terms of architectural significance, if that would make sense. I don't know, how does everybody else feel about this?
If you look at the other buildings in the area, the plaza to the west, I guess, even the new
The mini storage?
self-storage, the materials in those buildings are superior to what we're seeing in this architecture. I mean, I think it was described as
Metal building.
it's corrugated metal, so it's corrugated metal.
Right.
Yeah, the plaza's brick. You know,
There's the existing building.
the funeral home looks like a home. Apartments across the street are brick. apartments farther down, it's probably some sort of clapboard or something,
So,
It's color vinyl.
vinyl.
can we suggest some, I know that you can do a lot of things to dress up a metal building.
Well, they do have this
They do have a stone.
stone at the bottom. It's white, as I recall correctly, with the navy roof, right? So there is color in there, but maybe they can lift that bottom layer of brick up a little bit more. I mean, it is a tiny portion of the building if you look at it from
But if they
a scale.
lift it up more, they're reducing the natural light coming in. So they
Oh.
probably want the patrons to be able to see inside and see the activity and.
Can I see the side elevation again? Say the east. That's,
That's east side looking west.
so we're looking at like a royal blue standing seam roof with white corrugated metal siding.
The only thing I might suggest is taking that stone wainscot that really acts kind of like a water table and extending that
all the way.
all the way back on the two sides. And what that's going to do for them is going to reduce the likelihood that dirt and carbon that's in the pavement is not
Yeah.
going to get splashed up onto the white siding and, make that look dingy.
Right.
Yeah. Any other comments? I mean, I get the fact that, buildings are expensive and, Bob, your point is very well taken, that, there's a brand-new structure across the street that the materials are nicer, more,
Nice.
Curious if they even looked at other siding options, why they chose this one.
It's a metal building, so that forms the exterior wall surface, the metal panels. So, they can adhere something over top of that. Most of the buildings that you see around that have a lot of, drive it and, synthetic stucco on there, metal buildings underneath. But I don't have a problem with this, honestly. I mean, if you guys think it's appropriate to increase that stone, going back, it adds some color, it adds another shadow line, but I don't have a problem with this. Not in that location.
I for one would at least like to see that knee wall extended, the stone wall.
Extended.
Can you bring up like site photos? I mean, that'll all be essentially visible. Yeah, do we have any pictometry or Google images of, coming street views?
Of the existing?
Yeah.
Go back to street.
Yeah, because this is essentially taking the same place as that, and I'm trying to see topography, and as you go to the east, like toward the funeral home. Keep going.
It sits in a low spot because we've had, we know the rear side has drainage.
And the front's going to be in the same spot as that, essentially replacing it?
Mhm.
Guys, if you don't mind, I'm here on behalf of the applicant. He's okay with extending that wall around. It's going to be a black stone. It kind of complements the white.
Okay.
So the idea with the white is cleaner, looks very clean. That's kind of the whole idea behind him going with the color scheme. But I just wanted to-
Come up, please.
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
I'm Matt Newcomb. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. As I just mentioned, the applicant's okay with extending that knee wall all the way on the sides. The idea behind the white building and the darker black kind of stone was to kind of give a clean look because it's a cleaning facility. A lot of the reason for the metal building is the height, because he's got dry cleaning machines that go in there, and the way the racks move around in the back of the building, so.
So versus block or something, that's?
Correct, yep. I mean, block is a little bit more costly, obviously, so.
Matt, the roof color was blue, right?
Yeah, black doesn't, it's like an off, black doesn't really work well because of the heat and the sun, so they recommended a blue color, like a dark navy blue.
Okay, so it'll be a dark blue,
Yeah.
similar to the cleaners color?
I don't know that it'll be that dark, that light. I think it's a little bit closer to a black. It's just not a black color.
Okay.
I also wanted to note some of the site changes that you guys had recommended were great. We added about 1,500 square foot of green space in the front, which, we'll get plans for, but we were able to comply with all the comments. So.
Okay. Okay.
Roughly, the front facade of the proposed building, how does that compare with the building that's existing?
Well, the building existing is got all sorts of asbestos and everything in it, so it's not really functional. That's
Right, I'm just getting more of an idea of like scale. If you were to look at that, head on, what
Height-wise,
height-wise
massing?
and, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the elevations in front of me,
Okay.
but the elevation, the actual height itself is shown on those elevation drawings, I believe.
And from that street view too, I mean, you look back at that plaza and the side of that is block. You can, see that. I guess I'm thinking more of what the building is going to look like, from the street.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, is there any similar structures that you're aware of around here that?
Yeah, the town of Penfield's right on, it's
Jackson Road.
Jackson Road, is it? The barn that you guys own, it's right up on the road. It's got stone veneer on the base and metal building. It's much larger.
Just go to our DPW facility. It's
Yeah,
right
there
in
you go.
front out
DPW
by the road.
facility. There's also a building next to the Ukrainian Cultural Center, which is in Webster, that was just constructed. It's a northeast quadrant advanced life support building that was done in all metal as well.
Okay, that one's blue, right?
That one's blue and white, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a very economical way of doing things, and there's a lot of things you can do with the metal buildings.
Thoughts? I still I think I want to see that knee wall, or, can it go higher in the front?
Yeah, between the windows.
So that
Yeah, they can keep the light, and
have
even go up a little bit more in the brick.
There's,
you see something like that.
That's the one out,
That's northeast
That's
northeast,
quadrant,
yeah.
advanced life support on Jackson
next
Road.
to-
Do we get more treatment on the front and, and potentially leave the rear, but so that you get a better, kind of a higher end impact on the front?
don't look too bad.
is that an awning kind of
Yeah.
on the left side?
Yeah,
What color would that
so
be?
that functions as kind of a drop-off, porte-cochere type of a scenario where you can drive through, drop your dry cleaning off, and be
Oh,
undercover.
okay.
So,
I think he's
What
talking about the
color would
left,
that
though.
be? Would that be the roof color?
yeah, it would be, I think the facade of it's white, and then the pitch side would be the roof color, be the same color.
Okay.
I think that's what, yeah, that,
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 pilasters. So maybe we could raise that wainscot height of stone veneer up to eye level, 5, 6 feet at all of those pilasters. That would make a big difference.
I think it would make, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so leave it where it is under the windows and just raise it in between the windows.
Yep.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure the applicant will agree to that, so.
We're still waiting for some other revised plans, too, or these
Yeah,
guys
but
are
they're all technical in nature.
all technical?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. What is this?
Okay, so maybe based on these changes, are you cool with those?
Yeah, I
Right.
like that.
May we direct the preparation of a resolution, approval resolution, based
Okay.
on the things we've discussed for next week or 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay, so motion to move towards a approval of resolution. Do I need
Yeah,
to
begin
state?
preparing one.
What's that?
To start preparing one.
To start preparing one. And do you want me to state what we were just talking about?
Lori's got it
Okay.
down.
Yeah, we got it on the record, and
Yeah,
Well,
based
Matt
on what
knows
we've
that's
discussed.
important.
Sorry, I'm still new, Matt.
That's
Matt,
okay.
Matt, you got it?
You
Okay.
have to
so
go
it's
through
table
every-
pending a draft approval
We've
resolution.
got digital recording right here.
We have a second?
I'll second. Tydings second.
Tydings.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Thank you
Okay.
thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. All right. Car wash?
Car wash, 2140 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road, Splash Car Wash. So since our last meeting, we have received responses to comments in the tabling resolution and revised plans. Overall, they have met most of the comments that the board and staff had. One notable exception is that there was discussion both by staff and the board about the entry drive off of Route 250, about trying to bring that in so it's more of a perpendicular access and not at such a sharp angle. They did show that turning even with like an F-250 is possible. It's still an awkward angle.
Was it changed at all? Did they make it more perpendicular? So that hasn't been modified?
Nope. The other modifications, they added additional landscaping. As you come out of the tunnel, you now follow, North American
Could there
traffic
be-
standards and things like that.
How close is that southern entry to the pole? Couldn't it just be even
So
a little bit, I guess, wider or something? Or is it just because that's the existing curb cut?
there's a catch basin. Excuse me. There's a catch basin just to the south, right where there's a little, right there. So there's a catch basin just south of the curb cut, which makes widening it difficult. If they were to widen it, they would likely end up having to replace the catch basin or move the catch basin. So I know they are hesitant to do that. There's a pole and a catch basin. Staff's discussion was the potential that they either move or lose potentially just 1 or 2 parking spaces on that side, bring it in, and then have it curve have the entry lane curve once you're in the development, instead of having the awkward angle coming in.
So Doug, that's a discussion that you've had with the applicant?
Yes, and I believe the board, we had discussed it a little bit at the public.
We did, but so were they receptive to that?
We haven't had any further discussion with them on that. We are currently working through PRC memo in review.
Okay.
Sounds like a table.
Yeah, if there's a way to help lessen that angle, that would be great.
Yeah, it looks like a car accident waiting to happen.
The audience, if we want to have any discussion on that point.
And then I noticed the lighting plan. I'd like to see, there's like a model of what a light fixture would do, but there's no actual photometric plan, no ISO foot candle plot on the site, which pretty much every commercial site we're getting that. I'd like to see that. It's not a difficult thing. Whoever the rep is that their lights are going in there will do it for free.
What you guys come up with on the emergency road exit or whatever? I was watching it, but we're supposed to get back to you guys about going out the back, the road, I don't know.
It almost looks like
Does it exist?
kind of a stub or something.
Yeah, it doesn't even exist, does it?
Corner?
Are you talking about the access road?
Yeah, the access road in the back. 'Cause they said they were going to use that, but they don't even own it.
So the one for the emergency exit, they're working on acquiring an easement to allow the emergency egress onto it. The northern access road between them and 2140 is a shared road with a shared maintenance agreement. We have recommended that they do reach out to the owner at 2130 to discuss maintenance responsibilities between the two parties
I
on.
don't even know if you drive down that road. Last time I was over there, I wouldn't drive my car down it.
I drove down it last week. It's not in a truck. I have a low to the ground hatchback.
Did you take a town vehicle down there?
I did not. I took my personal vehicle.
Uh-oh.
I
warned you.
It is not in great shape, but I made it down. I did not dent a rim or pop a tire, so. But it is in rough shape. But maintenance responsibilities are shared between the two property owners, 2140 and 2130.
How far east?
So right at the end of the grass there, about that grass line is about the end of their property. There is a third property that has maintenance further 2195 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road, I believe. Either that or it's Penfield Road. The addressing's kind of weird, but there is a third property back there that has some maintenance responsibility of that portion of the road.
But they don't have an easement to access that yet, right?
No. They do have an easement for that one, the one that comes out to 250. It's going south behind the property where they're, yes, so it's going back that direction. There is, I believe there is, to some degree, an easement, but I don't believe 2140 is currently a party to it.
I'll tell you one thing. When I was there looking at the site there, back in that picture, Captain, that you just had before that, yeah, I pulled up and parked in those dryers, and you see where all the employees park. We're all parked along that south side there, down almost there was like 4 or 5 cars right down the line of the dryer. So I pulled up next to the dryer to go in there and check the site, and then I couldn't get out for a while because the cars started coming in, so I had to back out of there and drive out against traffic. But the car, and the cars, all the employees, whoever employees they have, were all lined up along there. They had a lot of traffic issues over there.
On the current site.
The current site, yes, I'm talking about, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the goal is to alleviate that through this redesign, and so that they have a specified employee parking area on the north side of the plan.
So,
We can't make a decision anyways, can we?
no, we can't, but I just, the easement, the maintenance of those roads, obviously it can't all go on this applicant, but we have to somehow come up with who ultimately is responsible for maintaining that roadway, because a lot of people are gonna, my choice, if I went through that wash, I'd want to go through the back way, go to the east of the bank and head home. And
A lot of people
there's
do.
Yeah, a lot of people that want to do that. And the LUAMP, that road exists, to the best of my knowledge, because the LUAMP said, hey, this is what should happen. We want to get people off of 250 and 441 and use all these side access roads. And, so they get built and then never maintained. It seems as though we don't have a mechanism to force the maintenance.
Well, we do. When the applicant comes in for the property improvements, then you need to do your share of the access drive. Unfortunately, the back portion hasn't come in yet for any improvements. Maybe they will in the future, we don't know. So the only thing we can do is ask for this applicant to work with the other adjacent applicant and provide at least this stretch with whatever maintenance that might need to be happen.
It's just one of the drawbacks of using this type of roadway, because you're dealing with easements and maintenance agreements that as it just has to be piecemeal, unless the town wants to acquire it, and that they're not going to want to do that.
Right. So it would benefit the residents. I didn't say that.
And they'd have to plow it and pave it.
Don't we plow it anyway?
No, I found that's not true.
That's not true?
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
And the only other outstanding thing is we do need to work with, and it's technical in nature, it's just really is stormwater. They're working on a design. I haven't seen any calcs or anything yet, but I'm sure they'll be able to make that work.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'll move to table pending continuing review.
Do you want to go over?
We can go over some other things, sure.
Okay. So they did submit, based on previous discussion of the board, they did submit sound meter readings as well as a diagram showing sound intensity for the vacuum units that they're proposing on, as part of this development. They're reading at 30 feet, which if we can go back.
It's 38 decibels.
38 decibels. If we go back to the plan. And you can zoom in, so.
But I personally am not concerned. I think that part of it is they've done a good job with that.
Yeah, so it's close to the road, and then the other one on the east side of the property is, it's 35 feet to the end of their queuing area, so they'll be theoretically under 38 decibels by the edge of their property or less, leading out to that access road behind them.
Okay. All right, everybody, I don't think anybody's going to hear it off-site. given the nature of Route 250. And it'd be more, if there's really any concern, it's to the east.
No.
But honestly, I think that it's far enough away from any of the houses that they're never even going to notice that those are on.
And
And they're probably going to be quieter than what's there now.
the ambient noise there, when this ramps up, the ambient noise will be loud as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we're moving forward.
Was the tower height revised, Doug, at all? Or was that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think there's no architectural changes.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember that compared to the Geneva location and the height, and that looks far more imposing than the Geneva location tower.
So the Geneva one was technically taller, but I think it was also wider, which from a perspective made it look shorter. So this one I think is 3 feet shorter. I think it was 30, Geneva's 35, this is 32. But Geneva, the Geneva locations was their front face as you viewed it from the road was a lot wider, so it made it feel shorter.
Okay.
Do you remember what the overall height of that was? I don't remember.
Which one, this one or
This
Geneva?
one, 32 or
This one.
something?
This one's 32.
32.
We're waiting for Chris's comments back anyhow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The board didn't direct us to send this off to Chris Lopez.
You didn't?
I thought we did.
I thought we did.
No, because we had the public hearing last time, and then we...
No, we didn't.
We didn't...
So I think that this actually would be a good,
Yes.
Okay, we'll send it off to Chris.
it's
High visibility.
yeah, and it's, let's call it unique enough to
Yeah.
warrant that. Okay.
Yeah, so there's the two Catherine's brought up, the Geneva and this location, just for reference. So I think the way Geneva's set up, it makes it feel wider, or it is wider, so it doesn't feel quite as tall, because there's more mass to it, horizontal mass to it.
It also could be the way the curved roof line goes. And yeah, I definitely would like Chris's comments on that.
Okay, we'll send it off to the architectural consultant for his review.
Okay. Anything else on this?
That's all we had. That's
All right. Somebody want to move to table?
Yours.
I know, but
You already did.
I already did, didn't I? I need a second.
Need a second.
I'll second.
It's been a long day for me, sorry.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Now, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay. No, that's good. Never mind. I'm good. Thanks. Okay.
All right, moving on to Lot 3, 300 YMCA Way.
Always.
So, since we last met, we've received responses to PRC, responses to the tabling resolution, and revised plans. Most of our comments have been were adequately responded to, so they did provide responses on refuse handling. So with, I guess I'll mix Lot 3 and Lot 4 because they're very
Yeah,
close.
let's talk about them both at the same time.
So Lot 3, the one in the back, the back side of the building, or the west side face of the building, on the north side of it has a bump in the corner there, that gray corner. So what they're proposing to do is to do a tote corral that'll be fenced and gated. So we'll hide it from visibility, except on, when they're brought out for garbage day. Lot 4 on the front, the toters will be stored internally to the building and out of sight, except on garbage day. And if there is a need in the future for a dumpster, they will work with the neighboring development at Penfield Square, Gardens at Penfield Square, to find a suitable location for a shared dumpster enclosure.
So I'd like to have a little bit better defined explanation of what that means. If they're storing them internally, is there a waste collection room interior to the building? And if so, why wouldn't that be adequate for the building? And if it's not adequate, then why are we waiting to address the location of a dumpster enclosure for some point in the future, I guess?
Okay. We could bring the applicants up if they have an answer for that. My guess is it largely depends on who the commercial tenant is. Some may be very low refuse tenants, some may require a lot. So I think it's variable based on the commercial tenant. I believe the apartments are intended to be fully.
You guys want to go up there just so that we can motor through?
So I think the toters will certainly be adequate for the residential.
If the primary Penfield Square developer says, well, the only space that I'm willing to give you is, 300 feet away, and tenants or residents are dragging, trash or, in the wintertime and everything else, and, that's certainly not in keeping with what's in the mud manual, and certainly not pragmatic, I guess. So, getting their explanation on the record is fine, but I would be in favor of asking them to find, to enter into an agreement and show us where that future location is at this point in the approval process. So, guys?
Yeah, so Louis Rivera, the developer for the property. I did meet with Home Leasing yesterday, and we are looking at the possibility of adding a dumpster corral to the north of the property and to the west of the property, which would be next to where they have the shed and a transformer.
We have that transformer.
Northeast?
Can you pull up the aerial?
Northeast corner.
Northeast corner?
Northeast corner.
So that transformer that sort of sits half submerged or whatever?
Yeah, so we would be to the left of that, where they have some flower gardens or flower pots, the wooden flower gardens.
Yeah, we've been looking at, we've been trying to work at trying to find a good spot that would have a shared location for the front building and Penfield Square for Home Leasing to use also. And like Louis said, he's been meeting with them just recently to see if that's feasible.
So how does that work? Has Home Leasing identified a deficiency in their refuse collection that they would want to share that with you?
They haven't, no. But what I proposed to Home Leasing was if we get the dumpster corral, so if they okay the dumpster location for us, we could potentially eliminate our totes as well from the apartment. So now there would be no totes on the property, close to 250, and we would have everybody put their refuse in the
So
dumpster.
that means even the residential tenants.
Yes, exactly.
Would have to
Yeah.
go across the parking lot.
Right.
And is home leasing suggesting that the dumpster enclosure would be large enough to accommodate 3 dumpsters, 2 for trash and 1 for recycle, or?
Probably not. No, I don't
Probably
believe so.
not.
It would probably be on the smaller side versus the bigger side of a dumpster corral.
So you're looking at like 4x6, 5x7 kind of,
Maybe an 8x8 or 10x10.
to 8x8 or 10x10, and then you got to have a recycle receptacle as well.
Right.
It's county law.
But that could be a tote size, slightly smaller than the actual dumpster, itself.
So for this board to ensure that you're meeting your obligation for waste collection for this application, would it be possible to get an agreement with home leasing that, if it's big enough to accommodate 3 receptacles or 2, whatever it is that you're doing, that we know that it's going to be adequate for the foreseeable future? And
Yeah, so I can only speak on behalf of my project. So we're building it to accommodate our trash. I can't speak on behalf of home leasing if they're willing to give up their totes. I don't know. But this, if they approve us to give us the dumpster, we would probably not need the tote storage in the front building.
so you just touched on something. Are they considering getting rid of the tote soldiers out in front of the apartment building? And
I don't believe so.
okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. And then to accommodate the rear building, also for the commercial space, they are suggesting that, so the current dumpster that's on site actually is not home leasing's dumpster. It's Episcopal's dumpster. So they're going to put me in touch with Episcopal to see if we could share that and enter into a shared dumpster agreement for the commercial space of the back building.
Okay.
So this dumpster enclosure for building 4, could you blow that up? So that would be where?
Northeast corner, northeast of the existing IL building, if you remember that it was called the IL building. Keep going. So we're currently looking somewhere in that corner. We haven't obviously revised any plans or finalized any design. Lewis wanted to meet with home leasing first to see about feasibility. So that's hot off the press, so to speak.
Because the transformer's right where that non-parking spot is, right?
Just
The striped.
to the side of that
Yeah.
the striped spot is for the shed. They have a shed there.
Yeah, it's the little white pad there.
Yep.
Yep.
And then they have a generator, and then the transformer's just on the northwest side of the shed.
So that's the closest option you can find for a trash enclosure for building 4?
No, it's not the closest, but it's the least visible from Route 250 and YMCA.
Yep.
So we could potentially put one right at the building, but from a visibility standpoint, I think it's better tucked away where it's not as visible.
That's why we started looking at it there. Yep.
Yeah, so it's less convenient, but it's much more appealing to the eye, I think.
So my parents have a townhouse up in Clayton. Their unit is at one end. Garbage dumpster is way at the other. And, they drive their garbage over to the dumpster whenever it gets full. So it's not like it's is it the ideal situation? I would say no, but it is workable, and they all, as far as I know, none of them complain too much about that.
Yeah, like Lewis said, the other option is to put it right next to building 4, but it's a little more visible right at the corner there.
So
Are you thinking, Jim, it's something that might be, right here, that was concealed and as much as possible, shielded and.
I'm not entirely comfortable with this future, we'll take a look at the dumpster enclosures somewhere down the road kind of a thing, because we have an obligation to ensure that you're meeting, some local regulations that include those provisions, and if the totes initially that are stored internal to the building aren't adequate for the commercial tenant, then we haven't done our job, I guess. So we're looking for some kind of a
actual plan.
Yes, some kind of a reasonable plan that's doable.
So the idea of the dumpster enclosure came as a future possibility, not knowing who the commercial tenant could be. So currently the plan is to use totes on the front. Let's just say it's an office that takes that commercial space. Well, an office doesn't really have any refuse per se, so they could just use the tote. If the commercial space becomes a cafe, well, now a tote's not going to be sufficient. So the future was to not have a dumpster corral and a fence that wasn't needed.
Okay.
So the thought was, okay, thinking ahead, rather than come back to the board, if we need it, it's already approved, we build it.
That's what we're looking for.
Right.
So a defined location, size that accommodates the waste, that accommodates the recycling, and if you don't build it tomorrow, that's okay.
Right.
Part of the approval process.
Correct. So that's what we're asking for. And if we get the approval, then the possibility exists where we don't have any totes.
Okay.
So
I guess you just need to.
It's a cleaner look.
You just need to advance your plans so that you've got something more concrete to present to the board.
Right.
Yeah, and like Lewis said, he met with him yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah. So we haven't been able to design it on site.
We're looking at.
Yep, it's a little hot off the press, so that's why we're. That's why we're.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So, just to touch on a couple of these other things here. So, we did send this out for review by our architectural consultants, so we're waiting for those comments to come back. And it appears that as part of the application, you're looking to make some changes in the signage that you'll need to go before the ZBA for that. Were you aware of that? Was that a discussion?
We just let them know, and we were in discussions on, the fact that the sign is moving closer to the road. It will need a variance from the zoning board per the MUD manual. The
Yeah,
planning board has
we don't have the authority to approve that, so.
Yeah, but the sign could potentially stay in the same position that it's in. It's just going to be very close to the building. So we may not need to modify the sign at all. I don't know what the buffer is.
Yeah, and I don't know, and that's.
Pull that up on the site plan.
Doug had mentioned that it possibly have to go to the zoning board, and so I guess our question would be, is it because of a setback issue or anything that it would need a variance, or is it just because it's getting moved, period? Because the sign itself would stay it's the same sign. Lewis is just looking to move it over away from the building a little farther, and it would be the same sign, just reconstructed, so.
So I guess if you think it can stay and it can accommodate any additional signage that you need in its current size and location, then.
Okay. Well, there's 2 empty panels on it right now, so I assume those 2 panels were originally designed for these 2 buildings, is my assumption.
You know what they say about assumptions.
Home leasing, and this was going to be a home leasing project before they flipped it to me. So.
You see any reason, you guys, why they would need to move the sign?
I don't see any reason why they need to move the sign, but if they do need to move it, they will need to get a variance because that's based on the code is where it needs to be.
Okay.
Well, they came in for a variance back in 2019, April of 2019, May of 2019, for the sign and its setback variance back then. So it does have, I believe, a current variance. It's just moving it closer would need a greater variance than it was previously.
So if you're good with where it is and it'll give you the branding that you need for your buildings, your tenants, then
Okay.
No other variances or anything?
Not for the rest of the site, no.
No? Good.
No, so we did get, so Chris Lopez, we did get, he did provide his review yesterday. Yes, we got it yesterday afternoon. His comments, most of his comments were around the architecture.
Did they have a chance to review them yet? This case.
We just sent it to them yesterday as well, when we got it. We forwarded it on.
All right, so we can all take a look at those over the next couple of weeks.
Yep. Any other questions?
What else currently on this?
So they did provide, in their responses, they did provide a revised erosion and sediment control plan. As part of that erosion and sediment control plan, they did go through sequencing and safety, indicating they would keep the road open, how they would keep the road open, that they would fence off the site from public access, and that they would post signage for pedestrian detours for the sidewalk to still allow pedestrian circulation around the site during construction periods.
Okay. And that for, I don't know.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Good. Good.
Snow removal and all that stuff around your new buildings, you guys are responsible for that, or home lease?
It would still be home leasing.
They take care of all that for you?
They currently take care of it now. We're not adding any additional sidewalks or parking spaces.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else we need to cover on this one tonight?
I think those are the big couple of comments we had.
Okay.
Okay, I move to table this application pending resolution of the items discussed this evening.
I think we can, Pete, do we need two separate tabling resolutions as two applications? Would we need two votes?
I think they could be combined. I mean, you had the public hearing was combined.
Okay.
Tydings second.
So why don't we just change it to, I move to table both of these.
I move to table both of these, Lori.
I second that, Tydings.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
I feel so much better about it that way.
I'm glad you feel better.
Thanks. Okay, we got anything else?
That's all I had for you guys tonight.
Okay.
No, where you go?
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time tonight and participation, and we will adjourn.